On iMOM.com, we share ideas, insight, and inspiration. We do all that here too, by sharing the best kind of stories, mom stories. We're all at different ages and stages, but one thing we have in common is that we're striving, and sometimes struggling, to love our children well. It's the iMOM Podcast. Welcome to this week's episode of the iMOM Podcast. Megan, Susan, Chloe, and Abby, we're all here once again this week to talk about when you have a kid who wants to follow the crowd. School is back in full swing, and your child might be trying to find like which friend group she wants to fit in with, or what he wants to do to, feel like it's not standing out. And so this week, Chloe has a story about her trying to do that.
Yes. So growing up, I really wanted people to like me, and I still want people to like me. But I've gotten better at, not making it the most important thing in the world. But anyways, I went to a Christian school, a private school, until I was in high school. And I was always like really insecure about it for some reason. I think because it was small, so I, only had a couple people in my class, and we had to wear uniforms. We didn't have school dances, and that was important to me. But when I went to high school, I really wanted to kind of immerse myself with the public school kids. I really wanted the public school kids to like me. So I launched my Please Like Me public school kids campaign by cussing. I started to cuss.
Oh my goodness.
I know, it was a really big deal. I didn't grow up in a household where we cussed.
This is how you got into social media campaigns. You started early.
Yes, I rebranded myself as a cusser. And I remember one night at a football game, it had gotten brought up that, my dad was a pastor and that I was a Christian. And one of my friends was like, Chloe's not a Christian. She cusses like a sailor or something like that. And I was just really sad because, I just...
Chloe, you went, oh.
But, it made me really sad because my faith was really important to me and I wanted to be known as a Christian. And it was just a really good lesson on, the price of following the crowd. And in this instant, it cost me, to use a Christian-y word, my witness. And it, I wanted people to see Jesus in me and they weren't seeing it.
So you think it's because you were a pleaser? Is it a personality thing? That's what I'm wondering.
Maybe. I don't know. I think in this situation, it's really weird. Part of me personally is like I am an individualist in some ways, but at the same time, I do want to blend in. Yeah. So I think it really was like I wanted to feel like I was a part of their stuff.
I had like a very similar experience because I was in private school through 8th grade. And so then when I went to 9th grade, I knew that people had these like expectations for who I was or what I was going to be like. And I don't know if I wanted to like prove them wrong or I assumed that it was going to be negative, they thought of me because just the stigma of a private school kid. And so I just, I wanted to, I don't remember what I did though. I dyed my hair.
Wow.
I know.
That's crazy.
What
so
color?
Edgy. It was like a maroon. It was like the bottle, like the washout stuff. So it was like a purpley maroon.
Nice. Just so people know, Chloe's had like 3 or 4 different hair colors in the time she's worked here.
Yeah.
Yes.
I dyed my hair. I mean, we didn't have uniforms anymore. So I was a really like straight laced kid, so I didn't do anything too wrong, but I just wanted to, like you said, and that's like most teens, it's like this weird odd thing where you are trying so hard to fit in while trying to be an individual at the same time, which I think is really interesting. And I mean, kids want so badly to fit in, and when they're not sure how to act, they start to look around for cues. And so that's why we have these kids who want to follow the crowd. They're like, what should I be listening to? What should I be talking about? Which TikTok stars are the cool ones that I should know their name? So how do we explain to our kids why we are saying no to some things? For example, if your child wants to watch Stranger Things because all the kids are watching Stranger Things and he doesn't understand, well, so-and-so gets to watch it. Why can't I watch it? Like, how do you, when all the other kids are doing it and you don't want your child to follow, how do you explain your no to them?
I would say, you got to have your family code of whatever, so for us, it was obviously God's word. And, in that case, dwell on whatever is good and right and pure. And if that show is not meet our criteria of that, that's why we don't watch it. So I really think the younger they are, you have to start kind of, this is what we do and this is what we know to be good for us. And it's, you got to fight that battle all the way through. But I think the earlier you start, the easier it is.
Yeah. When you guys were growing up, were you eager to follow the crowd? Do you think that you fell into that category? And if you didn't, how did you, like, what do you think was the reason for that? Because I do notice some kids are more inclined to want to do what other kids are doing. In fact, when I think about my kids, my older one is so not a crowd follower. And my little one, everything I want to wear the shoes that are cool and stuff like that, the harmless stuff. But there's just something about their personalities where one wants to blend and the other one is totally fine sticking out.
Yeah.
I think I was more like your older child. I wasn't so much a pleaser or a follower of my friends. I really cared about what my teachers thought. I was a little bit of an overachiever, so I had kind of this inner kind of goal or idea of what I wanted to do. And I really wasn't a follower.
What about you, Megan?
I think I was a follower to a certain extent. Like I definitely had a strong moral compass of, I feel like I knew what was right and wrong and I didn't want to get in trouble. So I think I would follow to an extent, but then I feel like it, if it hit a point where I felt like we were being mean or because I had been left out, when two girls get together and they leave the third girl out, that had happened to me a lot. So I knew how that felt. And so I didn't want to ever do that to someone else. And like I said, I never did anything where I would get in trouble. But I feel like even now as an adult, I'm much less of a follower and more of I know who I am. I know what I'm going to do. And I know how we're going to make decisions as a family. And so even if everyone's doing one thing or another, but I don't feel like it's the right decision for us, I'm much more confident to say no versus in the past. I feel like, okay, well, if everyone's making that decision or doing something, there must be some reasoning behind it. But I've learned in a number of different situations, it could just be the sheeple mindset of, have y'all heard of sheeple? Where sheep just follow one another for no reason. And that's a very real thing. People do that a lot. You'll see it easily in traffic. If you're sitting in traffic and you don't know why there's traffic, it's because people are just doing what the car in front of them is doing. And so I've very much gotten out of that mindset of just because everyone's kids are doing X, Y, and Z, or everyone's going to, doesn't mean that that's the right or the best decision. It just means that's what they feel is the best decision for them.
A study published in Psychological Science supports the claim that adolescents are wired to go along with their peers. So this is actually something that their brains are wired to do. Here's what they did. They attached these teenagers to a scanner, and then they were shown pictures, images from Instagram, mixture of neutral pictures and then some showing risky behaviors like making rude gestures, wearing skimpy clothing, using drugs. And for each image, the subject had to decide whether or not to like it, quote, like it. And they were asked to respond as if they were on their own social media account. The Instagram images also included the number of likes from other people. So they got to see how many other people liked it. Unbeknownst to the subject, those images, those likes were assigned by the researchers. They were totally made up. And it turns out that number actually made the difference. The higher number of likes, the more willing the subject was to like it as well.
Wow.
Yep. And that even held true for the risky behaviors. And so basically, they found that the popularity of a photo had a significant effect on the way the photo was perceived. And that part of the brain that is activated in the kids who saw the popular photos was the part that's involved in experiencing pleasure, like eating chocolate. And so when this part of the brain is stimulated, that behavior is reinforced. So they like the photo and it said, oh, that feels good. And they're more tempted to seek out other photos that have likes and that have those kind of behaviors. So basically, when we're trying to get our kids to not do things just because other people like it and do it, we're going against their brain and how their brain's wired.
And they assume if everybody else likes it, well, that must be normal.
Right, right, exactly. Why do you think, so why do you think that it's a bigger battle? Because we are facing a battle then. If we're trying to fight against what culture and what peers are telling them to do, why is it more of a battle with some kids than others?
I just think some kids care more than others.
Yeah,
like,
they do.
Trent and I are so different. Like, and Trent will tell me stories of when he was a kid. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, I pray to God our son is wired like you. Like, he just did the right thing because he did not care about what everyone else was doing.
Yeah.
I saw a picture the other day where it was like all the girls, these girls were like 9th graders, and they were all dressed the same. They were going to the Barbie movie, I think. So this is a while ago now. And they were all wearing like really skimpy clothes. And then I thought about a friend of mine who has a daughter who's that same age, and she dresses in, cute clothes, nothing inappropriate, very normal, like just cute 14-year-old clothes. And I'm like, why? Just because she's not wearing the short skirt doesn't mean she's still not following something. So is that the other thing too? Is it like you want your child to make sure she or he surrounded by the right people because they're just wired to try to fit in?
I think some of it involves a lot of conversation too. Like, well, why do you want to wear that? Where are you trying to draw attention? And to make them really think, what is behind what I'm doing other than I'm following other people? And that's the hard thing, is that takes time, but you're kind of building their confidence then. So what if you did what you really wanted? Is that really that important to you, what you wear? Or is that just, you got to make them think.
Yeah.
And I don't know that we take the time to do that.
And it's hard because it feels like it's something that you need to have this like big conversation about, but it's just the everyday things that are happening.
It's the everyday.
Yeah.
I see all of a sudden you're wanting to wear this. Why? Where'd that come from? You've never wanted to wear that before. Are you just exploring something new, or is there some kind of influence that's making you think that way?
Yeah. I honestly feel like I did not grow out of that kind of following trend until I was an adult. I mean, this is so stupid, but I can look back on like even different relationships I was in where I would just start to dress kind of like the guy. And it wasn't even until the pandemic, I was having a conversation with one of just a friend of mine. And we're not super close, but we were having a conversation, and I just realized I wasn't really having original thoughts. I was saying whatever I knew she would want me to say. And I had this kind of like existential crisis on the way home from dinner of like, who am I? Like, why can't I be okay with just saying what I want to say and, thinking what I want to think? And if this person disagrees with me, it's okay. And it really kind of springboarded this whole, thing now of like, my husband is country and he wears cowboy boots and all that stuff. You wouldn't catch me dead wearing stuff he wears. But like, I support him wearing that, and I'm going to wear whatever I want to wear. And it doesn't bother me the way it used to. Obviously I'm older now, but I did not grow out of that until I was an adult and had to have that really real conversation of like, I don't know who I am. I'm whoever I'm around, and that's scary.
This happened to one of my kids, and I was talking to him one day. He was like a junior in college, and I said, "What are you doing?" He said, "I'm doing nothing, and I'm enjoying it." He's an introvert. Like, we all know he's an introvert. He said, "I realized I don't have to go out. My roommates are always trying to get me to go out, and it's awkward for me, who doesn't like to make conversation anyway, to stand in a large party and try to make conversation when it's hard for me anyway. I'm much happier just to stay at home."
I love the security in that answer.
Yes, but identity is probably the reason we follow. Yeah. And so is it, for some kids, their brain just doesn't come together till, like you said, Chloe, till they're older, whereas other kids kind of don't care about the identity thing. They know who they are and what they like, and they just want to do what they want. I don't know. How do we give our kids that identity, or teach that identity, or question so they find that identity earlier? Yeah. I don't know.
Well, and our kids are making all these choices that on like just figuring out what their personality is, what hobbies they like, what friend groups they want to be part of. And they're like trying them on, almost like they're in a fitting room and trying to see what fits and where they feel like they belong. And so how does a mom accompany her child through these choices, support him or her, and be there when they're like, I don't want this friend group anymore? I mean, I guess
it's hard.
Yeah.
It's hard. There's a lot of pressure.
I think asking those questions, like you were saying, is so important, and just kind of like knowing, okay, this is about to be a ride. I'm going to jump on and, stay for the whole time and, support them through it.
Because you can't say, does this hobby, does this friend group, do you feel like you can be yourself? Because if they don't really know what themself is.
Well, I guess having those conversations, was that fun? Did you enjoy that? You're doing something new. Why? Because Bobby's doing it? Or, if they say, oh, well, Bobby's doing it. I'm laughing at our producer, Robbie. He's like going, yes.
He's like, I'm a trendsetter. Yeah.
Or are you do you really want to try that? And then after they try it, do you really like it? I don't know. It takes a lot of time, a lot of questions. And that's why we have so many questions on imom.com. Conversations are important.
It's funny you mentioned the thing about like him not wanting to go out. I think also telling your kids, and this is one of those things that you can probably say this to them. They might roll their eyes. They might not hear it at the moment, but they will eventually hear it. I have talked to so many people about college and about high school and like not wanting to go out and party, not wanting to do all those things, and feeling like I was the only person that didn't want to. And they're going, oh, no, I didn't like it either.
Right.
And I'm like, well, where were you?
The sheep. What did you call them, Megan? The sheep. They're just all falling.
Sheeple. Right? Like I had really great roommates who were my best friends and who were like all birds of a feather. And like there was one night I stayed home. I'm going to sound so lame. I cross-stitched. I started to cross-stitch my freshman year of college. And we still went out. We still had fun, but...
You brought your cross-stitch to the bar.
I did not. I just stayed home.
The light's not good.
But, it's like about being around people who make you feel understood and realizing that you're not the only one who feels that way.
Or you're not... lame because you didn't go out.
Well, and I thought that support looked like, oh, well, that person likes that too. But what support looks like is that person doesn't like this necessarily, but they like that I like that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Mm-hmm.
Right. Yeah. On that note, my husband is the first person I've ever dated or anything like that who I didn't try to become like.
Yes.
I didn't try to morph into him. And I think that married couples just naturally do that in a way, just by proximity and living together. But he's the first one that I wasn't like, I'm going to listen to everything you listen to and I'm going to dress the way you dress, because I have no doubt in how he makes me feel and that he loves me for who I am. And I think that our kids, if they can find these friends that they know like them for who they are and what they bring uniquely to their friend group, I think that that's how our kids can not follow the crowd.
That is exactly the point I was bringing up with me and Trent and like our styles, which is, just a part of how different we are. But the identity, like you said, Susan, that's the biggest thing. If we can really support our child's identity and let them know that they don't have to be like their friend. We want them to be who they are, that's huge.
What did James' little friend say to him the other day? It's okay that you color out of the lines. You're a nice person.
Oh. Was he talking to you, Megan?
No, his
little, a little play date with this little girl who's just a doll, and he was like, oops, I went outside the lines. And she goes, but that's okay because you're still a kind person.
Oh my gosh.
That's out of the mouths of babes. Like, oh my God.
Wow. That's adorable.
That's great.
So which of these three do you think, the big part of guiding kids not to follow the crowd is helping them to pick the crowd that they're part of in the first place? Which do you think is the most important factor in helping kids make good choices about their friend groups? Which of these three? Is it the boundaries that you set as a parent, as in the curfew, the tech rules, all that stuff? Is it knowing the other parents, or is it talking openly with your child about the decisions that they make and how they impact their future?
Ooh, that's tough. I like the last one. I think all of them are important. Let me say that. I like the last one because I think even with amongst your children, you can say, well, your sibling likes to do this and you've never liked that. So why are you going along with it? Tell me what you want to do. And it's okay if you like something different. So you can kind of start those conversations even really little. It's okay that you're different and you like to do something different. Don't feel pressure to do what they do. But so that's really, really young. I think the others kind of come into play as they get older.
Yep. Megan, what do you think?
I think I like a combination of the last two. Obviously, I think it's really important for kids to know who they are and know right from wrong. I think that's a big thing, especially in today's culture when there's so many influencers, and they're influencers because they are influencers, and they influence adults and kids. And I think it's really important for kids to figure out who they are and what they stand for, and be that leader regardless of what their friends think. But I also think, everyone messes up, everyone's a human, and they're kids and their brains aren't fully developed. And so I also think it's really important to have those close friends who are parents that can also fill you in if maybe your kid's going through a rough patch or whatever it might be.
Yeah. So I want to wrap up just with a couple extra last thoughts about things that parents can do right now to help encourage their kids to make their own choices and think independently. Do you guys have any thoughts on those? I'll give you mine if you want to think for a second. Something that my family always did was, and you touched on it at the very beginning, Susan, was having your family identity. Like, we never pretended to be the cool family. And that just kind of became part of our, like, who we are. It was funny. It was lighthearted. But then when this opportunity would come up for me to do something to follow the crowd, I'd be like, no, my mom would kill me. I can't do that. And my mom will find out. And it's just not something we do. Like, this is not what a Reifenberg does. That was my maiden name. That's not what we do. I didn't say that out loud, but that's what I thought because I knew who we were. So I think you can, help your kid make better choices by helping them know who they are and where they came from.
I would add to that, because I love what you said. Affirm what you see they naturally love, like, are good at, and say, oh, well, that's great that your friends are doing that. But remember, you really love to do this. So don't feel pressure to do that. So, just affirm things you observe in them and make, ponder that and pray about it and say, Lord, show me, how can I help them understand who they are?
Yeah, I think it's about being in conversation with them all the time. Like, my kids will say something and I'll be like, that's a really good question. I'm glad you said that. I'm glad you asked that. I don't know the answer, or then I do know the answer or whatever. So I think it's like realizing that they are not just there to be told what to do and to listen to you. They actually have things to say, and then you respond and say, gosh, that's interesting.
Yeah, and those interactions are shaping their identity.
Even as an adult, there's situations where I'm just like, I don't know how to handle this, but I have a few people who I really trust to go to that I've learned from relationship with them that they will give me good guidance and good feedback and good advice. So I think you can know who you are, but it's still good to have those people that can help point you in the right direction, because I think in my case, I've learned, like, my emotions and my feelings aren't always valid, or aren't always, they're not always right to act on, or whatever it might be. So I think it's, always good to A, know who you are, and then B, have those people that can kind of point you in a good direction if you don't know where you're going.
My parents did a really good job, and my mom actually just did this to me the other day, but they did a great job of this when I was growing up. They, allowed us to dialogue about the situation. Even if I, would come to them complaining, they would ask me questions to kind of get me to come up with my own decision. And they'd say to me all the time, I think you know what to do. And that really kind of built confidence in me and my own decision making.
I think that's great. We're going to post in the show notes how to pray for your middle schooler and how to pray for your teenager. And it'll give you specific things to pray for them, because like Megan said, their brains are not fully developed. And so even the best kid sometimes will make a bad decision. So we're going to help you pray for your kids, and make sure you follow us on Instagram at imom.com. Thanks for listening to the iMOM podcast. iMOM is the motherhood program of the nonprofit organization Family First. Along with our fatherhood program, All Pro Dad, we exist to help you love your family well. Subscribe to our daily email, the iMOM Minute, by going to imom.com/subscribe and get tons of great ideas, insight, and inspiration. The iMOM podcast is hosted by me, Abby Watts, along with Susan Merrill, Megan Tigner, and Chloe Blumenthal.